And we are live. Hey, everybody. Glad you guys are here. Welcome. Jerry Lynn, good to see you. Lori, Robert, others, glad you guys are here. And let me just take a moment and say if you were able to click over into the chat and take a second to tell us where you're watching from. Some of you guys, Scott and others, if you would, take a moment, click over in the chat, tell me where you're watching from. And I'm coming to you from Oklahoma City, right here in my church sound booth, which is, I've got 7 children, so it's like the quietest place in my life. And so glad to be here with you today. It's exciting to be able to share with you about what our church is doing for a trunk or treat and share with you some possibilities for fall outreach. I'm going to quickly take a moment and share a poll with you over in the poll area. Just a couple of possibilities. What's the most effective Halloween outreach that you've ever done? Maybe you've done a trunk or treat, or you've done like a school supplies giveaway, or maybe you haven't really done much. That's cool. Understand. Or maybe you've done like a harvest festival or whatever, or something else. And if you haven't done any Halloween outreach in the past, I see some of you done trunk or treats, and some of you have not really done a lot with Halloween, and that's cool. I'm happy to be able to share something that I think will be helpful to you and will be at least put handles on outreach, right? So something that you can grab a hold of and lift. And so, it looks like several of you most of you have not really done much with that. And so in the past, and so hey, that's cool. I get to be maybe of some help today. And so those of you who have done a trunk or treat in the past, maybe I can be of assistance in pushing you further up the road. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my webinar slides. Today I'm talking about reaching your community with a gospel-centered trunk or treat. All right. I want to talk to you about what we do and how we have done a trunk or treat event that has been a blessing. Let me give you a little pro tip here. If you silence your cell phone, it'll be a little easier for you. And so, because if you're like me, if you're a pastor, my phone rang multiple times in the past, in the last session that I just did a little bit ago, my phone rang more than once while I was teaching. And so just silence your cell phone. You probably get a little more out of this. Hey, Jerry Lynn, good to have you from Covington, Georgia. That's cool. And Kilgore, Texas. Lori, Benton, Illinois. All right. Just moved from Ohio. Scott, glad you're here. And glad to have you, Robert, Sand Springs. Glad just all across the fruited plains. We've got folks from here from all over. My name is Daryl Stetler, and I'm a pastor in Oklahoma City since 2003. I have been here and serve. It's the only church I've ever pastored, and I went from 0 kids to 7 kids. I preach the gospel here in Oklahoma City every Sunday. So I'm not a theorist, I'm a practitioner, and I actually do this. I serve as the lead pastor at a little brick church, the Bible Methodist Church in Oklahoma City on the southwest side of the city, and kind of an economically poor area. When we came 18 years ago, a little over 18 years ago, that was the congregation. That was like 1 month after we showed up. We had 12 people our first Sunday, our averaged 12 our first month, including my wife and I. And so it was kind of a church restart. And we were, over the years, the Lord has blessed us and we've made some progress. We're really, really thankful for that. And we're actually we're investigating buying a bigger piece of property a few blocks away on a more main street. And so we're just kind of in that stage of our church growth and life where God's helping and we're excited. One of the things that I want to talk to you about today is why we did a trunk or treat. Okay, so I'm going to spend about 5 minutes kind of explaining why trunk or treat, why Halloween outreach. And then I'll spend about a half hour talking about how we did it, all right, and how you can do it too. And then I want to kind of give you some shortcuts that I think is going to be really helpful to talk about how we can speed up the process, because let's be honest, it's kind of scary close to Halloween already. And so I'm going to give you some bonuses just for sticking around. I'm going to send you the gospel trunk or treat script, all right, the gospel presentation script that we use just for showing up and sticking around to the end, all right? So at this stage in my church development, and thanks, Scott. Yeah, I can always see your chat stuff. Pops up on my screen here. And so me too, Scott. I love church revitalization. Church planting's amazing, but man, if you can take a church that is already planted, and you can revitalize it and get it back on mission and get it back focused on the gospel. It's amazing. And so in this stage in our church life, we decided, after I'd been here a number of years, we decided to do a trunk or treat on Halloween. And I want to talk to you about why we decided to do that. First of all, we did it to capture an event already in the cultural consciousness. In other words, we didn't want to just reject out of hand. We're not like fans of Halloween, like, oh, it's our favorite holiday, but it's we realize it's like kind of based around, witchcraft these days and these kinds of things. But we didn't want to just reject it out of hand, and we didn't want to receive it either. I feel like the church sometimes falls into the two ditches on the opposite sides of the road, reject or receive. And it's like we have to either uncritically accept everything the world does or reject it all and say and make sure we're preaching loudly about how we're not like that. I think there's a middle road, and that's the one we decided to try to walk, and that is redeem. We don't want to just reject. We don't want to just receive. We want to redeem it. How can we enter into what the culture is doing and bring good news in the middle of it and let Christ redeem things that have been broken by sin and by sinfulness? Now, some of you are probably looking at me a little bit like Grumpy Cat right now, and you're saying, Daryl, seriously, how are you going to redeem witchcraft and the devil's day? Well, first of all, I don't think the devil has a day. I think God owns them all. And that Christ, when he enters things, he revitalizes them and takes possession of them and conquers evil from the inside out. And so I'm committed to it. I am not a fan of like Halloween and scary and ghosts and witchcraft and vampires and werewolves. I'm not a fan of that. I do think that evil has to be overcome, but it has to be overcome with good. And so we decided to move forward into doing a trunk or treat because, let's be honest, Americans spent about $9 billion on Halloween last year. My point with all of that is that Americans are already thinking about it. Like, it's already well in their cultural consciousness. They're already expecting to do something for Halloween. And so my conviction would be that we ought to do something. We ought to find a way that Christ's message speaks to what the culture is doing and speak to them on that front. So considering that as a way of moving forward, in the process, our children's leader thought of a great idea. I wasn't just into like, hey, let's dress everybody up in Bible costumes or Marvel costumes or whatever and do a trunk or treat. And yeah, Scott, you're right. Halloween is on a Sunday this year, which is unique too. Our children's leader thought of a great idea, and she said, I want to do a trunk or treat. This is our kids pastor, Elizabeth Hughes. She's been doing children's work for years, about as long as I've been alive, probably. And she is a good lady who loves the Lord, and she's really creative. She came to me and said, I want to do this thing I want to call Candy Through the Bible, and I want to teach Bible stories and do like a trunk or treat and teach Bible stories all the way around our parking lot. But I want to give candy that's related to the Bible story. I said, okay, talk to me. And she said, and by the way, let me just stop and say, if you're a pastor and you have creative people in your church, say yes as often as possible. For one thing, it'll encourage them. For another thing, it will release more creativity in your church. And I think you should say yes as much as you possibly can as a pastor to your creatives. And so I said yes, and I'm really glad that I did, because here we are like 8 years later and 8 trunk or treats later, and we are still going strong, and it's even better now than it was then. So we did. We said yes. And a whole bunch of people showed up, actually twice as many as we expected. And people were loving it. They were engaged and laughing and smiling. The adults were engaged and actually listening to Bible stories. And it let us do, and we sat down afterwards and were like, oh, that was amazing. We got to do this again. And we made a list of things we wanted to improve and change. And we've done that every year since then. So we had a ton of people. We got to preach the gospel to them in a way that was fun and engaging on a day that they already were doing something. And so I want to talk to you about how you can do the same thing. All right. So first of all, if you're going to do that, you would need to get a gospel-centered plan and script. I am so passionate about making sure that everything we do revolves around the gospel, not just syncretism with the culture. Hey, let's figure out how we can be cool and edgy and goth and dress in some scary or culturally relevant costume. Instead, how can we make everything center around good news? And so we decided to create this script, and I took Elizabeth's idea and the candy idea, and I developed this script. And there's actually several pages of it, and I'll talk a little more about it in a little bit. But it's we developed this gospel-centered script, and we start off by giving them a bit of honey candy, and telling them all of these stories we're about to tell you are from the Bible. And the Bible says, "Sweet are your words to my taste, like to my mouth, like honey to my taste." And so we're going to give you a bit of honey candy, and then we're going to tell you a bunch of stories about a hero that God sent into the world to fix the world in every way that it's broken. And so we start off with creation, and we talk about how God made the world. He made everything in just 6 days, and he created all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and we give him a Milky Way candy bar. And there's another example of a creation trunk one year. And then we tell them about the story of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve, and how God made people, and he made them to love him and be with him. But we tell the story of the fall. We tell the story of how the Satan, the serpent, tempted Eve, and how she ate the apple. And we give him a caramel apple sucker, and we don't tell him necessarily it's an apple, but we give him a caramel apple sucker to remember the story of sin. So we talk about, we do a little theological language, like we substituted ourselves for God, and we said, I want to be like God. I want to decide what is good and evil. So we use theological language in the script. And then we move on and we talk about God's love. I don't have a picture of that actual trunk here or that station, but we talk about how God's love motivated him to send a hero to fix everything that sin broke in the world. We just define sin for them and talk about how it's doing what is wrong when we know it's wrong. And then we talk about the Noah's Ark. Here's a couple other of examples. Looks like Noah's Ark that year. Noah featured Charlie Brown, it looks like. So we tell them the story there, and we give them a bunch of animal crackers or animal fruit snacks, which is a big favorite as well. So we give them those, and we tell them the story of how people became so sinful, but God provided a way that because Noah wanted to walk with God, God provided a way to protect him from God's judgment on sin. And we try to weave the gospel into all of the stories that we tell, not just moralism, but good news, right? So we center the stories on God's activity. Now, here's a story that we tell in a little bit. We talk about Jericho, but in the beginning we focused a lot on the walls falling down and God's power. And I was like, no, that's not necessarily good news. How can we center this story on the gospel? And then I thought, Rahab, that's somebody who wasn't part of the people of God. She wasn't part of God's people. She was left out. But God said, because you want to know me, I'm going to give you a way that you can say, I want to be part of the people of God, and we're going to include you, even so to the point that she became the great grandma of the hero that God was going to send into the world to fix everything that sin broke. She was outside, and God brought her in and included her. And so we get to talk about that, which is a gospel-centered way to tell that story. Now I'm gonna kind of run through these next ones a little bit faster, but we do David and Goliath. We used to do Samson. We didn't do it the last couple of years, but Samson was the strongest man in the Bible, and we gave him a crunch bar. We gave him a whopper because Goliath was a whopper. He was a big guy, and we give him a crunch bar because Samson could do more crunches than anyone. And then we tell the story of Solomon. He was also the great grandpa of the hero that God was going to send into the world. And we give him Smarties because Solomon was so wise. And we talk about how God said, you can have anything. And Solomon said, I want the right kind of heart. I want a heart to know what is right to do. And God gave him a heart of wisdom, and he can do the same for you. If you want to know God's will, God can give you a heart to do what is right also. And so we tell the story of Ruth in the process. I've got this a little out of order there, but we tell the story of Ruth. She wasn't one of God's people, but God included her because she wanted to know God so much. God said, I'm going to bring you in and make you one of my people. And so then she became the great-great-grandma of the hero that God was going to send. And do you hear how we keep bringing Jesus back? He's the hero that God is sending, right? So we try to keep bringing that back because we want to focus all of it not on here's a collection of random Bible stories, but we want to see people to see the unity in the gospel story. The whole narrative revolves around one moment, and then we get to that moment and we talk about Jesus. We talk about the nativity. We talk about how he came and he was God and he was man in the same person, in one person. And we talk about how he lived a perfect life and he never did anything wrong. And then, well, here's one that actually is a little out of order in my presentation. Sometimes we've done ones like the 3 Hebrew boys. This is the fiery furnace, and we had 3 Hebrew boys involved in that. There's Daniel. By the way, and this one we give him a Kit Kat. We give him a fireball, and this one we give him a Kit Kat because God turned closed the mouths of the lions and turned them into just little kitty cats. And it is so fun, these little creative, weird ways of presenting, and you hook it into a piece of candy, and it's really fun to see the adults kind of like grin and laugh. They enjoy watching their kids. We try to tell the story in an enjoyable way, and the adults, it's kind of fun to see them kind of connect with the candy thing as a deliberately cheesy joke, right? It's a deliberately cheesy connection, but the adults are engaged and they think it's fun too. We also sometimes we tell the story of Jonah. This is one that actually stays in every year because Jonah was one of those people who said, because those people are not like me, I don't want them to be included in the people of God. What a dumb thing to do, to run away from God. And finally, Jonah said, after the whale spit him out, he said, I will go and I will tell the good news about a God who forgives. Everyone is included. And so we tell that story, and we focus it in not on Jonah's sin and running from God and coming back, but we focus it in on the Ninevites and the everyone being included, because I think that's a more gospel-centered point of Jonah. There's another example of the Jonah trunk that we did. There's another example of the Kit Kat, Daniel and the Lion's Den. There is another example there of the Christmas trunks that we have done. And then I actually don't have a picture of it here, but we stop at the cross. We stop at the cross, and we tell people that when we stop there, and we say, this is something really important, that even though Jesus had not done anything wrong, though he had never sinned and he didn't deserve to die, he did die. Some evil men crucified him. Why is it? Here's why. Because just like Adam and Eve substituted themselves in place of God, on the cross, Jesus said, I'm going to substitute myself in the place of sinners. And so we try to tie it all together and help them see that this is the hero that God, and he starts fixing what sin broke by starting in our hearts. And so he comes to our heart and he sets up his kingdom inside us. And he says, I'm going to be the king who's going to fix everything that sin broke, and I'm going to start inside my people. Wouldn't you like Jesus to be the king of your heart and the forgiver of your sins? And so we focus it in on this king, this one who has come, the hero who has come. And so we talk about that, and we actually ask them right there if they would like to take a moment and pray. And we lead them in a prayer. If somebody is willing to do that, we'll let some people raise their hands, some people don't, some kids do. We've had adults do the same, and we lead them in a sample prayer. And so we walk through all of that in the gospel trunk or treat script, which I'm going to give you for free. Okay, so just stay with me until the end, and we'll do that. This is what we call the heaven trunk. There's a couple of different versions, several different versions of it that we've done over the years, and we give them at the end a large bag of candy or a big bonus of candy. We'll pour it into their bag, or we'll give them a big giant candy bar, like a big giant Hershey's bar, like this big, and we'll do that to help people understand and we'll close out the session by saying, heaven is the greatest reward of all. It's going to be the place where King Jesus comes and rules right here on this earth, and he fixes everything that sin broke, and he is with us forever, and that is the greatest reward of all. And we give them the big candy bar to close out the gospel story. So we tell the gospel story in a unified way, revolving around Jesus in such a way that we tie all of the stories to one gospel story, not just a collection of moralistic tales. And that's what I love. As a pastor, as a communicator, that's what I love about this. This is a marvelous way to tie together all of the stories and to make a gospel-centered, fun, engaging presentation that brings your community. Now, I want to talk to you about the second thing. So you got to have a script, right? You got to have a plan, and I'd like it to be a plan that centers around the gospel. The second thing you got to have is a data collection plan. Here's why that's so important: is because the first year we did this, we had so many people that show up. We had twice as many people as we expected, and they showed up, and we were like, oh, "Wow, this is fantastic!" And halfway through the night, I realized, oh, I have completely forgotten to do to have any way of communicating with these people. I'm not collecting their information. I don't know their address. I don't have their names and numbers. I don't have anything. And I said to myself, this will never happen to me again. And it didn't, because we literally put up a start sign. And at that place the next year we had our guest cards, these little guest cards to collect information. People still weren't filling them out at a rate that I would have liked, as far as some people were just not doing it, or they weren't giving us full information. And so we started the next year, we added another layer, and we were like, we're doing a drawing. Would you like to sign up for our drawing while you're waiting for your for your tour guide? Why don't you take a moment right now and fill out this card? So we have those, and I will include those in case you don't have any. I will, and one at your church, I will include them in the stuff at the end I'll talk about. However, the thing that we've discovered here recently is that there is even a better way, which I'll talk about in a moment, to do that. So this past year, we did something. We've run Facebook ads before, but this was the most successful Facebook ad that we've ever run. I think we spent $100 or maybe $200. I can't remember, on this ad and promotion. I think it was $100, but we put it out there, and it was a super clear what it was. It was a really clear call to action. There was a little bit of urgency. Only 100 cars this year, right? Because last year we did a drive-through because of the pandemic. Possible we may have to do the same thing this year. I'm going to tell you a way in just a few moments of how you can do that in such a way that people can stay in their cars. If you're in a restricted sort of place, you can stay in your car. Kids can stay there and still be able to get all the stories. I'll talk about that in a minute. But what we did is we gave a really clear call to action. Do you notice where it says in that slide, it says register for a time slot by texting OKC Church to 33222, and we got significant numbers of registrations out of that, which is pretty awesome. And so I was really excited about this. We actually, the nice thing about it is then we use a service, texting service called Textedly. That's hard to say in a really clear way, Textedly. .com. And so that I'll give you that link in the notes later. But the situation actually was that we bought this keyword that would allow us to sign up a list. And now we have a marketing list. We have a list of phone numbers that we can instantly text. We can drive traffic to an event. We can drive eyeballs to a video. We can do that. Here's why I feel like that's so important, is because we used to do like the gift card, or not the gift card, but the guest card, connection card things. And then we try to send them a letter and maybe send them a text and a phone call and stuff like that. But we didn't have a really great follow-up strategy. So I would tell you that this follow-up strategy was really core, and I'll talk about why that is in just a little bit, all right? Number 3, recruit and train greeters and storytellers. So if you are doing a walkthrough trunk or treat, It's a really valuable thing to be able to have other people do tour guides. So there's two different ways that we structure this. One time we tried making it where we had volunteers at each of the trunk stations, and they only had to remember one story and tell that story over and over again. And then other times we've done actors at the stations, like what you see here. We see David and Goliath. There's a little boy and his dad that were doing this. And then you see a guy in Bible costume there. He is teaching. He's telling the story of David and Goliath, and they're acting it out. And so we had 4 or 5 tour guides who could take groups through on a regular basis, because it takes to get a group all the way through all the Bible stories. Would take like 15 to 20 minutes to get them all the way through. But we're giving them candy at every station, and it's fun and engaging. So we have not found that people minded it taking 20 minutes. In fact, people waited a lot longer than that last year in the drive-through line. So we want to. I want to tell you need to recruit that. Now, you're going to have to start early, right? Because people are going to need time to talk this through, to get used to the ideas and all of that. So you're going to have to start really soon. Halloween is really sneaking up on us. And but don't worry, I've got some shortcuts for you. I'll tell you about just in a little bit, okay? Number 4, you're going to have to plan your follow-up. Plan your follow-up. Have a plan. Don't be like the year 1 version of me, okay? Be like the year 7 version of me, and have a follow-up plan. So the reason I think this is so crucial and important is, like I said, we use textedly.com, and now when this screenshot was taken, I had 72 people, 72 families, 72 cell phone numbers on my Textedly list. Now we have 125. So I can drive more and more traffic. I can drive more and more people and eyeballs to things that I want to promote, things that I feel like are valuable. So we created a system, a really uber clear system that walks people through it, and then a way to follow up in the years and the days afterwards. In fact, I'll talk about it a little more detail in just a little bit, but I had like a specific list of text messages, and what I literally did is I took my phone, I took it and I recorded a video of myself talking into it. I uploaded it to YouTube. I took that link and I sent it to the text list. So I get to drive eyeballs to my face, my welcome, my greeting, and we got significant numbers of views. I think we got 50 out of the 72 people on that list. We got 51 views. That's a ridiculously high number of engagement number for follow-up. That's ridiculously high to be able to drive that kind of eyeballs. So the reason that we did that is because marketing studies say that 90% of text messages are read in the first 5 minutes. So let that sink in for a minute. 90% of text messages are read in the first 5 minutes. That means that you get a chance to drive a lot of eyeballs in a very crunched time frame. Instead of sending a letter that is going to take a day to get there, and then maybe they see it or maybe they lay it on their table and forget about it or whatever, you're going to drive very clear calls to action, very clear ways to be. So the ways that you want people to act and respond. So that process is very, very, very crucial. Now, at this point, you may be feeling like, oh, this is heavy. Like, I don't know if I can pull this off. We're getting so close to the time frame already. Sounds great, Daryl, but I'm just not sure I can pull it off. I want to talk to you for a little bit about how to do this and make it less exhausting, okay? How to do it and make it less exhausting. So specifically, I want to take a moment here and say, if you have questions about I just covered a lot of material. If you have questions, put them in the chat and I will come back to it, okay? Because I can see your chats pop up. So I'll come back to your questions. If you have a question, drop it in the chat right now, okay? Or in between now and the end. I want to talk to you about how to do this and make it less exhausting. How to be the year 7 version of our trunk retreat, not the year 1 version. And so you may be saying, if you're like me, you hear these presentations, you're like, oh, that is great. But you just lengthened my to-do list. Now I've got like 50 things to do or 500 things to do between now and October, and I'm not sure I can pull it all off. And so I know you don't have time. Thanks for the question, Scott. I'm coming back to it. So anybody else got questions, drop them in there. I know you don't have time. That's fine. I don't have time either. We've layered this every year. We do it, and we put another layer of goodness on it, another layer of excellence, another layer of systems on it. What I would encourage you to do is just hire some of this done, right? Hire some of it done instead of doing all the graphic design yourself and designing Facebook ads and creating and then thinking through how my system's going to go and creating all this stuff. In fact, we've got a ton more resources that I'm going to show you in just a second that we've created that allow us to do amazing amounts of follow-up and may provide amazing amounts of ongoing gospel engagement. I want to encourage you to hire it done. You say, well, I don't have the money. If I was to hire somebody, it probably is 100 hours worth of work. Yeah, probably, maybe at least, depending on how fast you are, right? If you were to hire somebody at $10 an hour for 100 hours, that's like $1,000 for somebody to do it. And you just don't have that kind of money. Good news, I want to encourage you to do this gospel-centered trunk or treat package that I'm doing, that I have prepared, and everything we've put up, I've packaged it up, made it downloadable, made it customizable and editable, so you can literally download and edit a PDF, or not a PDF, but a PSD of a door hanger and replace it with your information, right? And then order them if you want to. You can have a Facebook ad that I've already pre-designed for you. I've got a coloring book, which I'll show you in just a minute. That's a spectacular idea. And so all of these things you can do, and you can create all this for $99 at gospeltrunkortreat.com. All right. So all of this customizable stuff you can get right there at gospeltrunkortreat.com. And so I'm going to share my screen for just a second. All right, let's see. Here we go. Sharing my screen right now. There we go. Okay, so this is some of the stuff that we have that's going on. We have a Candy Through the Bible coloring book. This is the first year that we have done it this excellent. It's been in the past like something we just literally like photocopied and whatever, but we're actually in the process of totally redoing it, revamping it, and we're going to make it available to you. Okay, this is actually the front and back cover. It's like a saddle stitched little half booklet, and you can put it in their bags. And the sweetest stories in the whole world. And I will show you, let's see, right here. If you zoomed in, there's a little QR code there that says scan here to hear all of the Bible stories. And we have a partnership with In the Gap Kids that does Bible stories. They do some really incredible stuff. In fact, I'll show you. This is their YouTube channel, and they have a whole ton of videos that they do. And those videos are Bible stories and puppet shows and all kinds of stuff. And they do really, really excellent stuff. And we have talked to them. They're working on right now creating a list of Bible stories that can be scanned and put on this right here, so that it will automatically go when some kid takes this and they go home. And we're going to put that same QR code inside the Bible story book, inside the coloring book. And so that QR code will take them directly to a place where they can, on their mom's phone or on their device, if they have one, they can watch the Bible stories again. So you get all of this gospel engagement, all these possibilities for people to engage. So we've all seen, right? We've all seen parents letting the phone babysit their kids. What if the gospel was babysitting the kids that came to your trunk or treat? Oh my goodness. So I want to encourage you to just to see the vision of this. So if you go right now to gospeltrunkortreat.com, this is what you will see. It is a system. You can skip that video if you want. It's about 4 minutes, but it's for people who maybe haven't been to this webinar. I've presented a lot more detail for you today, and I'm not quite done yet. So we'll keep talking about all this stuff. You can go to that gospeltrunkortreat.com, and I'm going to show you what some of the things that you get. Okay, so automatically, just for coming today, you're going to get this script, this gospel script that has all the things that all the stories that we told that can be told in a minute and a half, or you can expand it and make it longer if you really want to. And then here is something else that you get at that gospeltrunkortreat.com site, where you can get it. All this is all in the members area. Here's a 6-week prep checklist. It's 3 pages long. It's got things that I do 6 weeks in advance, 4 weeks in advance. I'm literally doing some of these things right now. I did some of them last week. Had conversations I needed to have. All right. 4 weeks in advance. Here's some things you do that Sunday. Here's 3 weeks in advance. Here's more things. Here's something we call prep night that allows you to do a whole ton of stuff. So here's some things you do the day before, some things you do the day of. And of course, the nice thing about it, it's in Word document format. So you can literally create your own. You can create your own. You can add steps as you're thinking about it, things that are unique to your situation, volunteers and stations that you're doing. You can do your own customizable list. You can add, subtract, take away, all that kind of stuff. So I want to then tell you another piece of this system. So I just walked you through a marketing system, like a follow-up system that allows you to have an ongoing gospel conversation with people that come to your trunk or treat, that you can continue to drive activities and drive eyeballs to things you want to do with that kind of texting list. And I have a document that walks you through exactly what we did, exactly the text messages that we sent. This is all in Word document format, so you can add your own or customize it. You can change it. And then the personal response idea. And then here's the text campaign that we did. Here's 1, 2, and 3. And some of those, couple of those we're actually doing for the first time this year. So it's brand new stuff that we're planning to move on to a drip campaign this year to continue to drive the kind of engagement that we want with that audience. They care about things. And so, wow, Krista, that's fantastic. I'm going to answer your question just a little bit. Okay. So I want to also tell you some other things that are in that system. Okay. All in the members area that can be downloaded. Here's a letter to a local business. For us, it was Sonic, and we did hot dogs at ours. And so we asked Sonic if they would donate 500 foil wrappers to wrap our hot dogs in to keep them warm. And they did. And so I have that letter for you in there. These are sign-up sheets. One is a candy purchase sign-up sheet. So this is the kind of thing you would have out 6 weeks in advance, that you would say, like, I'm going to pass these out a month in advance, 6 weeks in advance, and we're going to start talking to our people about helping purchase the candy. If they want to help out, they can't do a station, or maybe they can't do a station, but they'll buy the candy. Or if you would like to get involved in, whoops, I got 2 of the candy purchase. That's not what I meant to do. One of these is supposed to be a station sign-up sheet. But I must have messed that up. So I printed out 2 of the wrong one, 2 of the same one. So there's also a station sign-up sheet. Like, would you be willing to man a station to decorate your trunk? So that sort of thing. I want to also tell you, this is an info sheet that I print off. I put in our bulletin. And you can customize it. Of course, it's Word document format. I talk about the trunk stations over here and the basic idea of each of those. I talk about candy that we need. I talk about 600 pieces of each for us. We have to have at least 600 pieces of each. And then all the candy has to be individually wrapped. It needs to be brought in on Sunday. This was last year, Sunday, 10/22. And then you're going to allow it to get to your station at 5:30. And please allow time for traffic. And then here's some volunteers that we need. In other words, all of that content already created for you. You get to just customize it, print it out, drop it in your bulletin. And then here's just some like random observations that we had. Every year we sit down and we do what we call a what went right, what went wrong meeting. So we'll sit down together as a leadership team, and we'll say, okay, what went right? Let's make a list, because we want to make sure we do those things again, right? Like if it went right, we want to do it again, only better. What went wrong? We want some things we want to stop doing. This went wrong. Okay, who's going to be in charge of making sure that doesn't happen next year? Let's put somebody's name on that. And then what was missing? Sometimes we ask the question, what was missing? How can we layer this? How can we improve this? How can we go up a level? Those are the kind of conversations, when you have them year over year over year over year, I'm giving you a shortcut that allows you to cut cross-country, bypass a lot of those conversations, and reap the fruits of a ton of conversations that we've already had. So that idea is the deal with Trunk or Treat Gospel, Trunk or Treat System. I'm going to share my screen with you one more time here so that you can see the Gospel Trunk or Treat System. I want to point out one thing to you. You'll notice right here in the on that page, you'll notice that it says $99 price is not going to last. It isn't going to last. Okay? It's going to go up to $149, and it's going to go up on Monday at midnight. Okay, so I know some of you are in a small church. Maybe you're not even the pastor, that you're just here and you're like, I want to do something. We want to do something in our community, and I'm checking this out to see if it's something our church should do. Hey, send your pastor to this page. or send him forward on to him the replay, send him the gospel script, whatever you want to do, forward him on to this webinar replay. And in that process, you can promote that to him, and you've got time for him to take a look at it. And then Monday night at midnight, so all day Sunday, all day Monday, and then at midnight it goes up to $149. All right, so you can save the money and get the $99 price until Monday at midnight. So make sure you remember that Monday at midnight that price goes up. So if I am quite sure that your church can do this, and I'll talk about it, Scott and Krista, a little bit in a little while. About how some ideas for doing this, even if you have a smaller congregation. I know you can do it. All right, I'm quite sure of it. On that page, there's also a little preview inside that kind of gives some of the ideas. We did a big helium blimp one year, and so it lets you see some of the just pictures to kind of get a feel for some of the things that we've done. Now, this past year, we did things a little bit differently. There's a picture of the cross there. We did things a little bit differently at this past year because of the pandemic situation, which I'll talk about in just a second. In fact, I'll stop screen sharing and I'll talk about that right now. So the pandemic, if you're in a locked down area or an area where there's a lot of people who are really nervous about it, how do we do pandemic stuff? Well, let me tell you what we did last year. Okay. So last year, I started off trying to do it with phones. I was like, you know what I can do? I can send them a link and they'll click that link and then it will take them to a YouTube playlist that will automatically, and they can play it on their car stereo or whatever. It'll automatically give them all of that. The problem is that we did a trial run, which, by the way, you should always do trial runs, but learn from my mistakes. And I want to learn from my mistakes before they're public. So I did a trial run. And when we did that, we went through and we found like somebody, because everything was timed out, each station was like a minute and a half. We recorded all the stories and put music behind them and a presentation. And then we put them all on YouTube. The problem was after I uploaded everything and went to all of that work, people got phone calls in the middle and then they couldn't figure out how to get back to it and all that. So I was like, okay, I need to make this completely foolproof. How could I make it as foolproof as possible? So what we did is we bought 20 of these from Amazon. These are little Bluetooth speakers. And we bought ones that have not just Bluetooth, but have a little SD card slot. We loaded all the stories on that, and then we put them on that SD card and put it in here. Now, what that allowed us to do is do a couple of things. Couple of really cool things. One is it allowed us to have it where they could just push play and pause on the little buttons on the bottom. We colored in the one that's play and pause. So we're like, push play on that, and you can listen to the stories, and push pause if you need to, because the car in front of you is not out of the way yet or something. They can push pause. And so people did that. They just set it on their dash or they held it in their hand, and they pushed the buttons to get them through all of the stories. There's a very clear walkthrough. There's a sound at the end, bring, and they know it's time to drive forward to the next station. Now, with all of that being the case, it allowed us to do one other thing. It allowed us to create multiple versions. And we created a version because in our area, huge deal. Our version it'll let us do it Spanish as well. So we have an English version and a Spanish version. We had 10 English and 10 Spanish ones of these. And we would say, hey, welcome to Trunk or Treat. So glad you're here. Our greeters would say this while people are in the line. Would you like a Spanish, the stories in Spanish or in English? And people would say whatever they wanted. So, okay, great, here's the Spanish one. And they would push play. We had some bilingual people who were doing the greeting as well. They would push play on that and hand it to them, and it would get them started on the Trunk or Treat process. Now, that allows us to do some other really, really neat things. We would collect these at the end, sanitize them, and give them to the next people coming back in. So we just sent them around and around as we got, which was totally cool. And people loved it. But what it allowed us to do is we actually reformatted our drive-thru. We used to do it around the outside of the parking lot, and the cars were actually on the grass. and it left us plenty of room to walk around the inside. We reformatted, moved them all to the center, and drove the cars around the outside, so the driver's side window was always facing the stations. So we routed them around and sent them through that way, which is it worked out really, really well. It's never perfect because there's always somebody nothing is foolproof to a sufficiently talented fool, is the old saying. There's always something that goes wrong, but it is about as clean and about as foolproof as we could possibly get it to be. This year, it also allows us to, if you don't have Storytellers who are comfortable, it allows you to get a Bluetooth, like a larger Bluetooth speaker, a little carryable stereo that can really put out some volume. You could load all the stories in English or in Spanish onto that Bluetooth, onto your phone, and you could play them because we give all of them to you. We give all of these in that system. Every one of the files in English and in Spanish is yours. And so you get a chance to push play on that. And you could just carry that Bluetooth speaker around, and the stories tell themselves. And there's a very clear bring, and you move to the next thing, the next one. And so, anyway, those are some things that you can do with what we have. I'm going to do a screen share one more time here, and talk about Chad Christensen, a friend of mine who runs In the Gap Kids. Highly creative, like I said earlier, highly creative organization that does amazing discipleship stuff for children. And they came to our trunk or treat and wanted to get involved and do a trunk. And so he's like, man, this is the best trunk or treat ministry I've ever seen. It's like the gospel is presented, it's done well, it's engaging, and anybody, regardless of talent or experience or giftedness, anybody from your church can be a part of it. There's all kinds of levels of involvement. So anyway, he was just thrilled to see it. Here's a little picture of the line of cars. We literally never saw the end of the line of cars for 2 hours straight. And we got to serve all those people. So the real question is, are you going to do it the easy way or the hard way, right? You can do this all on your own, and that's totally cool. But I will tell you, this is an expensive event to do. It costs a lot of money to buy that much candy. And if the people in your church, even if you farm it out and allow people to buy the candy, which we do every year, and some of it, and then the church just fills in the gaps. But even if you engage your people in that and they fund that, here's the question. Would that $99 fee, would it allow you to multiply the influence and the effectiveness of that investment that your congregation puts in? If you're going to put dozens and dozens and hundreds of volunteer hours into this, if you're going to put maybe hundreds, could be even thousands, I suppose, depending on how big your trunk or treat is, if you're going to put all that money into this, all that investment, I think that this $99 is a shortcut that allows you to do more with that money. And so it's an effectiveness multiplier for that portion of your investment. So that's why I think it's really important. GospelTrunkOrTreat.com is where it is. In fact, I'm going to share that with you right now. There we go. So you have a way where you can click that on your screen. There should be a way to click that and get the shortcuts right now. Okay. So you're welcome to click through and go to that if you'd like. Now let's talk about some questions. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and talk about questions. All right. So Scott says, Halloween is on a Sunday this year. Yes, absolutely. And we're gonna do this in place of our Sunday night service. All right. So really, really cool. It gives us a week to follow up with people and to try to drive and keep our church in their mind and keep the gospel message in their mind for that year or for that week. How many cars, Scott says, how many cars do you need? How many stations do you need to pull this off? Okay, here's a cool thing about this. This is scalable, all right? It is scalable. It can go from a smaller number to a larger number of stations. We actually have as far as the audio stories, we have, there's 15 stations in the audio stories. However, you could cut some of the audio stories. If you were like, we're a small congregation, here's a couple of possibilities. One is when we've had years where we couldn't really fully do this, like we didn't have a great number of volunteers who were doing trunks that year. We actually have reached outside our church and reached out to a sister church or a neighbor or some family members and said, hey, would you mind coming and doing a trunk for us on this night and helping us present the gospel to our city? And people do it. Now they're usually like, yeah, hey, it'd be a fun night and be something cool. And so usually people are willing to do that. So it allows you to cut stations and get down to a place where you could. I would say, Scott, that probably you would need to get the full effect and to get the full thing, you could probably do like 9 or 10 stations, something like that, and still get a really good feel for it. So if you needed to shrink it down like that, you could probably still make the story flow if you did it well. But we have up to 15 stations, and we have had as many as 18 different stations in the past. We've cut sometimes for the sake of time and volunteer space. So, okay, so Krista, speaking of time, we have a small congregation, Krista says, but our trunk or treats bring about 1,200 people through ours. Yeah. What tips go that, by the way, that's fantastic. Wow, what an opportunity. What tips can you give when working with a small amount of helpers and a really huge crowd? I'm not sure if a time would permit a tour. Okay, so that's entirely possible. Maybe you've picked up some things, some ideas like the presentation that I was talking about. You could also do something where it would be like you trained a helper to give a 1.5-minute version of their story. And so they give 1.5 minutes, and there's 15 stations. It takes 20 minutes for people to go all the way through. Frankly, they're going to walk from door to door anyway, and you're giving them candy and you're engaging their attention. Hopefully that works out well for you. I understand what you're saying, that time may not permit a tour really easily. That's why we actually have like 4 or 5 tour guides when we do a walkthrough. We have 4 or 5 tour guides. You might, with a crowd of 1,200, that's a crowd of, ours is more like a crowd of like 600, which I'm really impressed with your connection there. But we have, with a crowd of 600, we've had to really stretch because we've run into several different things. Sometimes the tour groups get too close together, or one tour group took longer. Mine, because I'm long-winded, right? Our tour group took longer to do that. And so I would just say that those are some things that we've run into in the past. But I think that if you wish to find a way to do gospel-centered, the gospel-centered thing, these stories that are audio, that are a fixed length, would help you program that out. So if you sent a tour guide with these station things and just played it for them, or you had a recording at each station and you just pushed play on it and let them do it, and then they would move to the next one, and that person would wait one, and then a new group would come in and they'd push play. So you'd be like every other station. Maybe there's some logistic ideas. I don't know how that works for you. But okay, any other questions? Drop them in the chat. And Scott and Krista, thanks for the questions. If you have any follow-up questions, that would be fantastic. I will tell you that I had a question in the last session that was really valuable that I may have failed to mention. They asked this question. They said, what about your QR codes on your coloring books? So I need to explain 2 things on the coloring book. Yeah, thanks, Krista. You said you've given out free hot dogs and chocolate and candy, biblical themes. Yeah. And you're going to be without a pastor right now. Wow. I will be praying for you guys. That's a challenging time to do all of this stuff, and my respect for caring about your outreach. That's fantastic. A couple of things that I want to share with you in this moment that are like in terms of really interesting questions that people ask. People ask about the system. So the system is downloadable at gospeltrunkortreat.com. You can click to go to that. It'll open up, and it should open up in a brand new window, and you won't even navigate away from this. So people ask about the coloring books, and we are actually revamping our coloring book right now. So we have a girl that does art from our church, and she's drawing brand new coloring book pages. So we're in the process of doing that. She has several of them done, but we're not ready to print yet. But that's cool because we have time, right? So here's the deal. all of this stuff is instantly downloadable in the members area, which you get access to when you purchase that $99 system. You get instant access where you can log in, create your account, log into the members area. All this stuff is downloadable. However, the only thing that isn't downloadable this exact minute is the coloring book. You can download the cover if you wish, but you can't download the inside of it because we are revamping it. Here's why that is because I'm not a theorist. I'm a practitioner. All right, we're doing this literally right now. So that's why we're literally building it, and anything that I'm able to build, I want to pass on to you. So we're building that. And then somebody asked, does the QR codes, do they go away, or do they stay active? Yes, they stay active. Here's why. Because I want to drive that to a YouTube playlist so that if, let's say, this kid loses their coloring book or forgets about it, and 6 months later they find it at the bottom of their toy box. If they think about it, like, oh, I remember this was cool. And like, oh, this says here I can scan. Hey, Mom, where's your phone? I want that to be active so that there's an ongoing opportunity to present the gospel in a meaningful way to those kids. So we are in the process of partnering with In the Gap. And as that goes live, as they get the rest of those videos finished up, as they get the coloring pages finished up, you get them too. All right. So it's an automatic deal. So if you will, I don't see any other questions popping up in the chat as yet. So all of you guys, thank you for being here today. I'm at 55 minutes, so we're under that number right now. So guys, really thankful that you are here, and I would ask that you would click through the Get the Shortcuts Now button that is on your screen. And if you click through that, you will go directly to that page, and you'll have an opportunity to do the trunk or treat thing, the trunk or treat planning system, and get it right now. So if we're going to do this, let's do it, right? All of this stuff included, and you can get all of that. If you are somebody who says, I've got to check with a board meeting, I've got to check with a board. Hey, thanks, Linda. Appreciate it, and totally understand. Thank you for being safe while you're driving. I have 7 children, and I appreciate people who are safe when they're driving. I want to encourage you to do this. If you have board members or like a children's pastor or a lead pastor that you've got to check with, somebody you've got to get approval from to spend $99. If you've got to do that, you have a weekend to do it. Okay, so the $99 deal doesn't go away until midnight Monday. So all the way through Sunday, all the way through Monday, it's open, and the deal isn't even going away then. The price is just going up. All right. So $150, you can still get it if it takes a week to work through it with your audience or with your church congregation. You got a week to purchase it. I would encourage you to go for it. And if you're wondering about the replay, this exact same webinar, you will get a replay link that is sent to you via email later on. And so just watch for that, and you can feel free to forward that on to somebody else, your pastor, whoever, and ask them to check that out. All right. So all of those things will happen. And my voice is tired after doing this. I will be sharing it 4 times today and 1 time tomorrow. So my voice is getting tired. So if you have questions, drop them, or comments, drop them down in the chat, and I'll be happy to. Thanks, Krista. Yeah, you're welcome. And awesome. I'm glad that you're going to be checking with your church about it. I hope it's really helpful to you and helps you just level up whatever you're already clearly doing something right. You got a 1,200 person crowd. That's amazing. So hopefully it just helps you level up your investment that you're already making and being even more effective with it. So God bless you guys. Thanks for being with me on the webinar today. And I'm going to leave this up. The shortcut where you can click Get the Shortcuts Now is there. And so I'm going to leave this up for a minute. And if you have further questions, I'll watch the chat. All right. Thanks for being here today. God bless. Thanks, Jerry Lynn. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is. It really is a great outreach. And we are so thrilled to be able to do it. It's every year we get done, we're so exhausted. And we're like, that's why we do that, is because it's just marvelous to be able to present the gospel. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. And it is, yeah, I hope this is really helpful. And Sunday School and Outreach team, yeah, totally. Pull them in, forward on the link, send them to gospeltrunkortreat.com. And we're really excited to. I'm really excited to be able to share with you all of that stuff. So fantastic to have all you guys today. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, we need conservative congregations who are passionate about outreach. It's so important. Passionate about outreach and discipleship and making it happen. So thank you. And thank you for being on. Obviously, the fact that you're here means you care, that you are interested in evangelism. So if the rest of your congregation isn't, you are. And so go be that leader. Go be that voice, man. We need guys like you who care enough to spend their time and invest their emotional energy in doing something. Let me encourage you guys with one final note before I get off. They say that 80% of a rocket's fuel is used up in the first 5 minutes. Okay? It is a lot of work to get this off the ground. It's a lot of work. But once you get it going, it's repeatable and it's giveawayable. And that's my goal with all of this stuff, is I want to make everything I do repeatable and able to be given away. So totally, you should totally do that and do it. God bless you. Go out and get her done, y'all. All right. Thanks for being on it. I'm going to shut the webinar down. And if you have any further questions, email me at Daryl@NewStartDiscipleship.com. That's my company. And so Daryl@NewStartDiscipleship.com. Shoot me an email or reply to my emails that you'll get in your inbox. So thanks a lot. God bless. Talk to you soon.